Hey, yo, YouTube, what's up? It's your boy, Louis Cypher. Welcome to the show, Dangerous Bastardized Philosophy from a Disillusioned Cosby Kid. Now, I want to tell you a story. It's the late 80s, and Marvel Comics has just been purchased by Revlon under the leadership of Ron Perlman. Now, Mr. Perlman knows exactly what kind of financial asset he has in his hands. He knows that he's holding on to a future Disneyland of intellectual property. So to greater ingratiate himself into the future economic potential of Marvel Comics, he sold off the merchandising rights to Marvel exclusively to Toy Biz under the leadership of Ike Perlmutter and Avi Arad. He also sold a couple of movie rights to Golem and Golem Productions, Canon Films. You probably heard of them. Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo, He-Man, Superman 4, those guys. Funny thing is, Canon Films ran out of money. So he said, you know what? Forget about it. You got Spider-Man, you could keep it in perpetuity. Perlman isn't an idiot. He had controlling interest in both Toy Biz and Canon Films, and if he was ever to be held accountable for his bad business decisions, he would always have those two aces up his sleeve. And he did just that. He did some incredibly stupid business moves. He tried his own distributorship, that failed. He bought Panini Baseball, he bought Panini cards from Europe, that failed. He bought Flair Baseball cards as a corporation, that failed. And he leveraged his assets of Marvel Comics to do so. Now, ultimately, of course, this culminated in Marvel filing for bankruptcy in 1993. Now, the banks, they told Perlman to take a hike. They told Avi Arad and Ike Perlmutter to become CEO and president of Marvel Comics, and they succeeded in bringing comics out of the doldrum. By filing for bankruptcy, Marvel Comics was able to get Spider-Man back, but they were cash poor, so they sold off Spider-Man just as fast to Sony Pictures, right? That's how Sony got Spider-Man. Now, I bring up this story for a simple reason. If it's possible for these Jewish gentlemen to pass around billion-dollar intellectual property as if it was nothing, as if it was all willy-nilly, why is it wrong to speculate that they could also, another set of Jewish gentlemen could also sell political influence, grift, and blackmail in the same vein? How did Weinstein and Epstein take us by surprise if we know that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolute? Is the Jewish question hurting America? That's what I want to bring up to you. Maybe you don't like comic books. Maybe you don't like comic books. You're Michael Brooks, right? Fuck Michael Brooks. Sheldon Silver, New York City Assemblyman, kept the UFC away from Madison Square Garden for 20 years, specifically to spite Sheldon Adelson in Las Vegas for not supporting unions. Sheldon Silver alone was able to keep the UFC away from, and the day he went to jail was the day we had Conor McGregor come over to New York to fight Eddie Alvarez. Influence peddling. Now, is it me, or are making these observations considered taboo? Are we being blackmailed into silence from a group of people who have formulated a schema, a pattern, a behavior pattern of academic achievement, media infiltration, economic infiltration, and then influence peddling? Are we allowed to say what is working? Are we allowed to make things that we point out things we see with our own eyes? I think it's unfair. If I'm not a white nationalist, as a matter of fact, I love Israel. I love Israel in the same way a Jets fan would love Tom Brady. It's like, I'd like to be more like you. I'm just not going to compliment you to your face. I've said many a times, hell, raise my taxes, protect Israel. Richard Nixon is my favorite president. They need to come over here and teach us their wonderful wall technology. That's me. But if I were to speak on behalf of disgruntled white nationalists, I would have no choice but to assume that white nationalists don't believe that the egalitarianism that the Jewish academia is preaching is the same thing that they're stating in their own country in Yiddish. Is what you're saying in English matching what you're saying in Yiddish? Are you teaching your countrymen in-group politics, economic achievement, intellectualism, rationalism, and while you're teaching us queer theory, critical race theory, egalitarianism, communism, and Marxism? Are you patriarchal while you're selling us feminism? That's what the mystery is. Because the behaviors that are working for Israel as a nation is not what is being taught in this country. It is just not. And to point that out will lead you to be destroyed economically and financially and socially. We're being controlled by not being able to talk about reoccurring behavior. And we cannot talk about Jewish people as if they're congenitally nefarious. But why can't we talk about it as an algorithm? Why can't we talk about Judaism as an algorithm? Because I think there's some healing properties in which, like, these behaviors are reoccurring. These behaviors are reoccurring. Political achievement, patriarchal, family-minded, and that goes against what's being taught in colleges, allegedly. So, I ask you, if the Jewish question is actually harming us, what are the best ways to talk about it? What can we do to find out what works for their people and bring it over to the United States? Because I, as a black person, will tell you straight up that I would give my left nut for more black people to be as foundationally insular as the Jews. I'd give everything for us to be as family-minded, as economically productive as they are. But to even say that, I'd be branded as an anti-Semite. Is the Jewish question destroying America? That's some food for thought. This has been your boy, Louis Cypher. Have a nice day.